name is Adrienne Silva. I'm a graduate advisor at the Graduate Student Center, and I've been lucky enough to recruit a few of our alumni to come and talk to you about their amazing journey through graduate school and their career and footsteps afterwards. And they really want to share their experience. So if you're undecided if you want to go to graduate school or you don't, or maybe graduate school is something you should do or not do, please listen to their wonderful and amazing words, their tips, and their stories to let you decide what is the best option.
Hi, my name is Jaycie Fickle. I am a Ph.D. candidate at the University of Utah, and I received my master's in biology from CSU Bakersfield.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deon Danehy. I graduated CSUB with a master's in public administration with an emphasis in healthcare. My current position is in healthcare. I'm a hospital director of a forensic psychiatric program. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Casey Harris. I did my undergrad at CSUB I graduated 2016, so it's been a minute. And then I did a master's degree in prevention science, and then another master's degree in criminology, law, and justice. I am currently doing work with survivors and victims of different types of violence. And I also work as doing some research and evaluation assistant on the side.
Hi guys, my name is Kristen Rogers, and I also went to CSUB for my bachelor's as well as my master's degree. I got my MBA and I just graduated last May, which I'm super excited to complete. I've been working in accounting for the last 6 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Erene Thomas. I actually got my bachelor's from Cal Poly Pomona.
What helped me know that that was an option is early on in my undergrad career. So sophomore year, I started taking some of my required biology classes, and there were master students TAing. And I think that was my very first introduction into what a master student does and what role they play. And I just remember talking to my TAs about what they were doing. And so not only were they teaching, but they were also doing research on the side. And so I think that was a really good introduction for me. I think that was a really good introduction for me to just kind of get a handle on what graduate school was.
Obviously, not having to pay for your school is amazing, and that way you're not racking up debt. But one of the other motivating factors for me was not doing it alone. It was actually really different in just kind of how things progress and how you sort of are motivated, and whether you're motivating yourself or kind of have a sort of in crime. So for me and my bosses, he's Rich Nelson, we sort of pushed each other and decided that, hey, we're going to be in the same exact classes, which pretty much we were the entire time. And it just kind of became this, fun little competition. I'm still very happy to say that we both got 4.0s, which is something I never did in my undergrad. But it was interesting because he had, his highlights in a class and I had mine. So it was kind of this little friendly banter that really kind of helped make it truly a great experience. And then, of course, factoring in that I was working at the time. So trying to do that balancing of school and work and not having one affect the other was a bit of a challenge, but I honestly wouldn't trade it. I loved every minute of it.
I mean, honestly, I think when I was really young, I think I've always wanted to go to grad school. I think I've always wanted to get my education. When I was younger, I did not think that I was smart enough to do so. And so there's a little joke in my family of I barely graduated from high school, but then I went on to get 2 master's degrees. So it's kind of no one was really betting on that for me. But I always wanted to go to school. I always wanted to further my education. I was a psychology major, and I had always heard if you want to do anything with that, you have to at least get a master's degree. So it was always in the back of my mind, but it seemed really unattainable. And then I started talking to faculty about well, I'm also really interested in research and I really want to do research as part of what I do. And they were you do need to go and get a graduate degree to be taken kind of seriously with that. So once I started in on the research side of things, I just like really fell in love with like behavioral science. I really fell in love with like the field that I'm in. And so when I did my first master's degree, I was already very much in like the doing research on gender-based violence and doing research on reactions to survivors of sexual violence. And I knew I wanted to do more of that. So I was like, okay, this is a really good program.
So I actually didn't know what graduate school was when I started my undergraduate degree. I knew that I wanted to go to college. I didn't know what a Ph.D. was. I didn't know what a master's student was. I just knew that I had an interest in science. And so that's what I majored in. As an undergraduate, I worked with Dr. Jacobson and did some research. And I really enjoyed doing it. And so I helped other master's students with their research at that point. But I also had some of my own questions that I wanted to answer. So Dr. Jacobson let me pursue those. And then when it came to the end of my undergraduate career, I knew I liked doing research, and I wasn't really sure where else I could do similar research other than in academia. And I wanted to continue doing it. And so a master's just seemed like the next step for me. I wanted to carry on with a similar field and a similar research study, and it just made a lot of sense. And so I asked Dr. Jacobson if I could join her lab as a master's student. And so she helped me with the application.
I started out really well with my undergrad. I got a 4.0 my first year, and I was, I really thrive in the classroom environment. I love the intellectual discussion and just educated debate. And I feel like I just thrive in that environment. So I enjoyed my first year. Life happens, you hit bumps in the road, things that are unexpected, things you can't even necessarily control. Classes suffered ultimately, and that was upsetting to me at the time. It seemed like the end of the world. And so I got it together by the end of my bachelor's. And I was burnt out. I was like, I'm never getting a master's degree ever. I'm never going back to school. I'm done. Like, I can't even fathom doing that again. That was so challenging for me at the time. I worked for 2 years, and I kind of, through a collection of events, I felt like I wanted to change my career path from accounting to, honestly, that's to be decided. But my master's helped me get into other areas that interested me. And I found out through these classes, the MBA has a variety of classes. It's not just like really specific. And I also wanted to do this because I wanted to prove to myself that I could. It was kind of like redemption for me. And so I put 110% of myself into my MBA, and the classes were tough, and I got a really good GPA. And so I was very proud of that. And it felt like I could breathe now, because in accounting, when you apply for jobs, which they don't tell you this when you start, they want to see your GPA. And so CPA firms are going to ask, let's see your transcripts. And that was like, oh, I don't, and some of them are high. Like, we want you to have a 3.7. We want you to have a 3.5. And that can damage you. And so I just felt like I got to put that gold star on my name after I completed my master's. And so that was, that's ultimately what, and it was actually COVID. I started in 2020, and I had nothing better to do than homework. So it was kind of the perfect time for me, honestly.
I can jump to between my two jobs because I think it's really funny, like just kind of how it's worked out, because I feel like we all probably have a little bit of imposter syndrome. So I'm going to start out by saying I'm not trying to like brag or anything, but I do have a lot of confidence in what I do. I have a lot of confidence in so when it comes to like doing work with like survivors and victims, like I know how to find out information really quickly. Like, I feel like, I know so much about the field because I spent so much time doing research in the 2 degrees that I did, that it's like, okay, I know what author to look for who studies this, so I can keep up to date with all of the research, so that I know that when I'm doing like educational pieces on it, that it's set in what the science says, it's set in what the current data say. And that's helped me so much, just for one, being able to check for accurate information because there's a lot of misinformation in my field, and it's a very politicized field. So when I tell people what I do, I feel like I almost have to like slip in that I have my master's degrees for them to take anything that I say even a little bit seriously. So in that way, I do feel like I have a little bit more credibility, because like what I do does not require a master's degree for the work that I do with survivors and victims, but it definitely helps. And like, even though I don't technically need it in order like to get hired for the job that I do, I don't think that I would be able to do the job as well without what I got from those 2 degrees. And then with criminology, law, and justice, like the focus of that degree and the focus of the research that I did was on like what happens after someone's hurt, what can we do long-term to help, and like how can we have better outcomes for them. And so much of the work that I do now is actively trying to do those things. So just kind of having that in my tool belt has been amazing. For my second job, I work as a research evaluation assistant, and it's not at all related to the field of my first job, but I just really like research. And I've been working there since I was in my last degree program. And the way that I even got connected to that was I was taking like a statistics class in a different department at the university because I wanted to take more stats classes. And there was a former like alumni who had just started a business who was looking for people to come in and like help her with her business. And so I ended up getting connected through that. And like the topic of that is like equity in STEM, which is amazing, but it's just very far outside of what my background was in. But because I had that interest in stats in my other degree, there became so much overlap between my background in like victimization services to now working with a lot of people who are engineers and are in such a different field than me. So it's really interesting the way that even though I was in behavioral sciences, like just that interest in science, the interest in data just really overlapped.
Yeah, absolutely. So public administration for me, I believed, was so broad yet so specific to where you learn nonprofit perspectives, you learn for-profit perspectives, and you learn how to run a business. But I got an emphasis in healthcare, meaning my 3 electives you take during the program were all healthcare based to give me a background on how to run a successful healthcare business. So instead of going into a healthcare position to where, it's just strictly healthcare, I kind of wanted to learn all principles so I can have, for-profit perspectives versus nonprofit, because you have to learn how to do both. And I think when you have those, it gives more tools for you to be successful. And also, I feel like, learning things like grant writing and learning things like how to work with budgets is something that I wasn't going to necessarily get in a healthcare stricken kind of, graduate program, to where I had mentors who even were my professors that literally worked in healthcare. So I was able to get people that worked for CapK. I've had people that worked like Fred Plain that was able to mentor me, working in healthcare, but then working for a nonprofit, and then giving me those perspectives and giving me a real look at what it's going to be like for me on the outside. And then again, I had a blast with my 3 electives that were all healthcare based. It gave me an opportunity to talk about these things with my mentor, John Van Boning, who was the Dignity CEO. And I was able to do an actual progress in a CQI class for healthcare where I presented it to Dignity Health, and it was something that looked at their needs assessment. So I was able to have that and have that, mixed in with my real world experience. So I think that was always my track. I just didn't want to, I wanted to give myself every opportunity to learn everything I possibly could, so that when I get out of my master's program, there's nothing anybody could tell me that I was missing.
I've actually got my question before. It's how does somebody in IT decide that they're going to go into public administration? Those two don't really, have any comparables. And I didn't know how to answer that question just when I started my path towards master's. As I kind of got through it all, it was kind of a realization that, well, what is public administration? It's literally dealing with people and kind of the study of how you approach different situations, how you approach different people, backgrounds, attitudes. And it's kind of it's a wide net, really. So being in management, period, not even IT management, just management, period, whenever you're dealing with individuals, you kind of have to have all those things in mind. And just to kind of throw an example, one of the classes that I took as an elective is supposed to be, that's all MBA. For any of you who aren't familiar with Lean Six Sigma, it's, kind of the process of cutting back on different things that maybe you look at a process and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, maybe 3 is not necessary. How is that going to impact the workflow kind of thing? My day-to-day is somebody says it's going to take me a week to finish a project. Well, why is it a week? Why isn't it 3 days? Let's see what your process is and see if we can, make tweaks to change some of those things. And it becomes very clear that it's very, very relevant really quickly. For me, it sort of adds to that people aspect, especially because when a lot of people meet me and figure out what I do, it's like, you don't look like a typical IT person. You don't sound like one. That was kind of the point. I think a lot of the exposure that you get in the master's program is very different than, say, what you would get in an undergrad. But by that same token, I think it's very valuable because you're sort of exposed to and almost pushed to look at things that you never really thought, is this something I'm interested in or could potentially interest me? And I think with that, and right now I'm on the fence. I still haven't decided if I'm going to do this or not. I actually had inadvertently recruited mentors for myself, and a couple of them are already pushing me. So you're going to get your doctorate next, right? Is it something I could potentially do now? Maybe it's a toss up. So I'm not necessarily stuck in, I must do IT strictly, user facing kind of stuff. In all those different avenues, it really just kind of helps you position yourself that maybe you're not a one pony show. You actually have a few traits and things you can really expand on.
Obviously, you have some required classes and then you have some elective classes, if you will. And I think why accounting's just, I found it doesn't fulfill me the way I maybe would want it to, is I'm very empathetic and I enjoy working with people. And I think I like I've even kind of researched into a PhD program, which has to do with organizational behavior that interests me. And so I'm just finding that I'm very interested in the people within the business. And that could be marketing, that could be HR, things like that. Communications aren't really related, but it is kind of weaved into business. I ended up doing an internship, which I was labeled the communications intern. That involved a lot of creating marketing ads for social media, writing kind of like newsletters to be emailed out, or designing the graphics for that, producing, organizing events, and working fundraising with sponsors. So this organization is a nonprofit. It's local. It's called Orly Shoe Drive, and it is near and dear to my heart, actually. It was the perfect situation. I didn't necessarily anticipate doing an internship. I just happened to be, I think it was on Handshake. I don't even know why I was there. I was just scrolling through and I see this ad for it, and I thought, I'm gonna reach out to her. I met with her. We hit it off. I had a fantastic experience, and we're still friends. We have each other's numbers. She even reaches out to me still to kind of make any advertisement logos, anything that they want. I will do that for them just because it was such a good experience. And what they do is they fundraise to buy shoes for kids that are underprivileged, go to low income schools all around Kern County. And so that was something that moved me. That felt like, okay, doing this internship, it just kind of confirmed to me that this is fulfilling to me. And I was working full-time, going to school full-time, and then took on an internship on top of that. And I loved the time I was spending during that internship. And so that just kind of confirmed with me that I felt like it at least showed me that this is a direction that I would want to pursue. And I think it was fantastic just to get kind of references. I now was able to show this is the work that I put out. And something I like to say all the time is no one cares about your stuff as much as you do. And so when I signed up for that internship, I told her, I know that this is really important to you. She founded it. It's based off of her father-in-law who's passed. And she just cares about this so much. And so I told her, I genuinely care about this because I know you care about it. And I want to do work that you would be proud to put your name on. I think that's just for me, having that inspiration to take this on kind of just leads you down a path that you didn't necessarily anticipate going on, but it kind of takes your hand and you just go along with it. And so, yeah, I think that accounting's been good to me, but we're gonna part ways eventually, and I'm gonna do something that just feels a little more inspiring.
I participated in the first grad slam, and that was fun. It was really challenging to get a research question and maybe some of my results narrowed down into a 3-minute period. So it's a fun challenge. And, when you're talking to people and they ask you, what's your research about? It's good to have that elevator pitch. And so this is a good example of having that elevator pitch ready. I additionally participated in several student research competitions. I have been participating in them since I was an undergraduate, and I would participate in them every year. And a few times I even got to go to the CSU wide competitions. And so just participating in that was really helpful. And as a PhD student, we have to participate in seminars where we talk about our research. And it's almost the same format as the student research competitions. So none of it is shocking and surprising to me now because I had already had that experience.
So one thing that I think that is kind of a misconception with grad school in general is I think that a lot of people that don't go that route assume you just kind of go to your classes and you go home and that's what graduate school is. But there's so many things that you're doing along the way to learn. And there's so much labor that you're putting in to kind of become an expert and to learn everything that you want to learn. And because it's impossible to do it just through the classes, I remember when I started my first master's program for sure, and my second one as well, I was very much anything that I can do that's going to give me experience, I want to do. If I have the time, if I have the capacity for it, I'm going to do it. And so I know in my first master's, I was very much okay, we have to do a capstone project. I want to collect my own data. I want to use my own data. I want to go the hardest route that I possibly can go so that hopefully I can present that. I took any opportunity that I could. And so one of the things that we did was we actually had evaluated the sexual assaults prevention program that the university was using at the time. And so that was what I ended up doing for a huge part of my capstone was evaluating that program and seeing what's effective, what's not effective, and then also learning about some of the legality of having an outside company come in, which was just really interesting to me too. One of the things that was really amazing with my second degree was that you actually had an assistantship. So our tuition was covered and they had me teaching. So I was really fortunate that I got to teach some of the college courses and I got to assist on other courses. And so I think it was a really wonderful experience and a very at times silly experience to be teaching while you're a student. Because I would tell them, I would be I promise you, I understand and I want to help you if I can, but there's only so much that I can really do. So actually being able to be okay, I get it. I understand you. I do. I'm literally going to a class after I leave this room and I'm doing my homework while you guys are working in your groups. I get it. So that was really interesting too, because I really did get to interact with a lot of really amazing people. So just a lot of different things. I mean, when I was in my undergrad too, I joined every research lab that the psychology professors will let me into. And they were wonderful and would allow me to come in so I could learn about different fields of psychology. And I really think that across my experiences, there was so much nurturing with my interests and with what I wanted to do that I really got to see what it was like day in and day out to do work as a researcher, to do work as an advocate, to do work as, an eventual teacher. That was pretty cool.
So there were many things that I did during my master's program that really helped me get to where I am now. So I'm currently a PhD student and I'm working on research. And my career goals are to continue to work in academia and to continue to do research and do teaching. And so one of the main things I did during my master's is I participated in research. So I did a thesis track master's, and that really gave me a lot of experience in doing my own research project, and that really helped me get a head start into my PhD program. I feel like I would not have been ready for my PhD program if I had not done my master's. I know that's not always the case for everybody, but I feel like I needed that extra practice in doing research. I also participated in lots of student research competitions, and that really helped me learn how to communicate with others on how I did my research, and just making it accessible to others. It's a hard skill to obtain, and so it gave me lots of practice, and I'm still using some of the skills today that I learned from participating in those competitions. And additionally, as a master's student, I did a lot of TAing, and in my PhD program, my first year, I had the TA, and so I already had the experience. It wasn't scary for me to have to do TAing, and so now next semester I'll be co-teaching a class with an instructor, and I'm really excited, and I know that my experience TAing during my master's has really helped me get to this point.
I think with mine, we kind of try to keep it close to home. So some of the research and the projects that we did kind of did involve evaluating programs that were literally on site at CSUB. I remember one of the very first classes, it was a program evaluation class, and we decided to evaluate the RAMP program. So this fell directly under actually Sarah Hendrick, who happened to be our classmate at the time also. So that sort of added another fun layer to it. But it was something that she genuinely wanted to know. Well, how are we doing? It's, we only get certain perspectives when we're talking to, say, the mentors and some of the students who are interested in participating in the program, but they've never really had someone from the outside come in and say, all right, well, show us exactly what your layout is, what your program looks like and what it involves. And then kind of have somebody objectively say, hey, you're doing these things that are absolutely fantastic, but if you incorporate, these few things down here, it'll, be over the top. And hopefully, and our goal was really to increase their exposure, but also to increase their the good work that they do.
Yes, when I first got into my master's, I realized that I wanted to kind of drum down on a specialty. I applied for the Master's of Public Administration program, but didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do. So I kind of found a real interest in healthcare. And so one thing that I did was contact Fred Plain, and he appointed me to the mentoree program where I can get an internship in my specific field. One of the things I did was actually intern with the CEO of Dignity Health, which kind of expedited my track into healthcare. And another thing was I found a graduate student leader position on campus with the counseling center to work in conjunction with my master's. So not only was I getting on the job training plus an internship, I was also being mentored by literally somebody running a multi-billion-dollar empire as well in healthcare. So all those things working in conjunction kind of set the field for me once I got my master's degree to go into the field that I am in today. And I advise anybody going into a program to really try to get into a mentoree program to get that component of it, and also try to find a part-time job or an internship to align with that, so you don't struggle when you get out of your master's and you've already set yourself up for success.
I definitely would have never made it to this point if I wasn't brought into doing research. I honestly don't know what I would be doing now. I couldn't tell you, but I think one of the main points of getting into graduate school, the main reasons so many students, especially in the sciences, get into graduate school is if they already have that background in research. And I recently helped participate in recruiting week for our college. And it just seemed like the students who were ready to enter graduate school had already had at least some experience. And, we knew that they were making an informed decision on entering graduate school.
I didn't come across research opportunities. Had I would have loved to have taken a part of that. And anyone that is going to get a master's degree, if while you're there, just take advantage of the things that are in front of you, because it might open your eyes to, okay, this actually isn't as interesting as I thought it would be, or it just might confirm your path. Like, yes, this is, I love this and I want to keep going forward with it.
Not necessarily. I kind of got my master's in the midst of COVID, so I didn't get to attend a lot of meet and greet situations. My internship actually got cut several months short with my mentor. The job market just wasn't where it was because of COVID. So other than that, I mean, I really wouldn't change a thing. The program itself was wonderful to me. Even with COVID, they tried to do everything in their power to make sure I was set up for success. My mentors, my professors. Other than that, aside from COVID again, it really was nothing I would change differently. If anything, I kind of would have maybe started on my internship track that summer before even starting the program to give myself at least 3 more months to acclimate. But other than that, no, it was nothing I would definitely change.
I really didn't come across much research, which I do think I would have probably really enjoyed a few projects just to kind of get my hands in some different areas and see what might interest me. Because I think that's maybe it gives you a look on what that job will actually be, which for me personally, getting my bachelor's is, you're so young. And for me, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grow up. I didn't know. And so I just picked my concentration the very last day that you possibly could, because I didn't know. And so then you're just running that race to just get the bachelor's degree. And then once I did it, I realized this, I kind of wish I had done more during my bachelor's to know what this really was going to be like. Now, there's a variety of avenues you can go within accounting, and I've done a few of those avenues, but ultimately I have learned and would tell anybody, do everything, be super active during your time there, because these resources are free, most of them. They're available, and they're super helpful, super, super helpful. And I know it's asking effort of you to give up some of your time, but this is such a small period of time. That's something else, and why I decided to get my master's is people were telling me, well, the time's going to pass anyway. 2 years is going to happen anyway. So you might as well pursue a degree with those 2 years. They're going to pass. And I know it seems like you're losing time almost, but you're actually, it's going to just propel you to where you want to be faster.
I can only speak to my experience, and like this is the thing too, is like when I got my first master's degree, I was like, all right, I'm set. It's going to be so great to explain this to people. And then I remember like telling people I had a master's in prevention science, and people were like, what the heck is that? Like, what does that mean? And nobody had any idea what my degree was, what my field was in. Like a lot of people thought I was doing like loss prevention, like in stores. And I was like, it's very different, but that's okay. And I went into quite a bit of debt for that first degree. And, I don't regret it for a second. Like there is something that getting that degree, getting the second degree, like for one, just the confidence that I have in my place in my field, I wouldn't have that same confidence. And I really do think that, like education, like it's so cheesy, I think, to say sometimes, but I mean, like we're all kind of nerds here, I guess. But I think that education can do so much to open up the way that you see the world, and can expose you to so many different things, so many different ways of thinking, so many different perspectives, that it's really hard to get that somewhere else. Like if you do want to do any sort of like advocacy, if you want to do anything that at any point in time can be politicized, like I do kind of hate this. I think it's kind of elitist in our society, but people will give you more credibility when you have a master's degree, and people will take what you say like a bit more seriously. And again, I hate it. I don't think it should be like that, but that's been my experience. Is it went from like, oh, she's just this idealist college student, to like, oh, so she has to know something about what she's talking about, right? I also think too, like I changed my master's degrees that I was in from time to time. Like I switched out of one program and into another program because that felt like a better fit for me. And I remember just like the shame of like, oh my gosh, I have to tell everyone I'm leaving this degree and they're going to think I'm stupid and they're going to get so like mad at me for changing my mind. Nobody cared. Like nobody was upset. They were just like, oh, so you're doing this one thing and now you're doing another thing.
Yeah.
But 1,000,000% it was worth it to me. 100% knowing what I do now, knowing the debt that I have, I would do it again. Like I would never take it back. I think 1,000,000% it was worth it to me. And like to the point where I will consider getting my doctorate degree and doing even more graduate school.
I still say it's worth obtaining. I will say be very honest with yourself and question your motivation. Because a lot of people think that, hey, if I get my master, I'm gonna get whatever job I want, and anything I apply for is gonna just poof, it's gonna manifest, and I'm just gonna get it, and everything will be gravy. I think I'm in a very unique position because, I left CSUB in December, and ideally you don't ever want to leave a job without having another one lined up. My situation was just very unique, that opportunity kind of didn't happen for me. So now we're in April, about to get into May, and I'm still unemployed, but realizing that it is not an easy picket to just, sure, I'm gonna work my butt off for 2 years and it's going to be uphill battle just because I'm working or I've got family or whatever your situation is, thinking that the master is going to be your answer to a great job, a permanent job, or something you're just going to absolutely love and you're not going to want to do anything else. It's delusional or not even naive to think that I'm going to do this because it's going to just open doors. It's not true. I mean, it doesn't hurt. But in some cases, and actually a friend of mine pointed this out because he's a director in his company and whatnot. I was talking to him, and words that I don't think I've ever expected him to say is, your resume is very intimidating. What? So I'm now overqualified for everything because I have a master's? How did that happen? Where did the ball get dropped? So it made me wonder, like, okay, well, sure, getting my master's helped me sort of decide I'm going to pursue a specific track that, I don't know, maybe I'll become CIO somewhere or CT or whatever, still within the IT field. But is that really is that what's happening right now? And the short answer is not particularly. Really, really kind of sit with yourself or talk to somebody you trust. Just figure out what really is your motivation behind getting one. And I still say pursue it, but don't pursue it and put yourself in debt and all these other things in hopes for, I'm going to make 6 figures easy. That thing will be gone and like that.
Yeah, I 150% do, because if you look at the market now, a 4-year degree is becoming the norm. It's so competitive, whatever job field you take, and there's some obviously programs outside of nursing that you can become a nurse and then you can work, but then if you go and get a graduate degree in nursing, you become an NP and then your salary ranges skyrockets as well. So it's starting to leak into other areas that these things wouldn't normally leak into. I believe everybody, unless you have a real solidified plan, should at least take the time to go into a graduate program. For me, I got my undergrad in criminal justice, but never saw myself as a law enforcement, going into law enforcement or going into something that was civil in that sense. I like policy. I liked understanding why things work. So going into a graduate program, it not only helped me kind of structure what I wanted to do career-wise, but it allowed me the time to develop my own plan and allowed me to make connections with people and kind of drum down on what I specifically want. If it's financially feasible for you, I obviously would always say yes. But at the end of the day, everybody's journey is different. I just knew for me, I had no idea what I wanted to do after my 4-year degree. And I knew that, going to an MPA and going that route, I'll get to the conclusion I want after the 2 years I spend here. And it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. And I'm even considering going in for my Ph.D. because it, again, pushes you to a different salary range, but also allows you to continue learning and to continue putting yourself in different rooms with people, pursuing different and the same things at the same time. So I would always recommend taking the time and doing your due diligence on determining what fits for you specifically.
So I feel like you have to be ready to give 100% of yourself. Don't think that you can kind of give 50% and you'll scrape by and make it. And then you think that once I have the degree, I'll apply for the job and I'll get it. It's not going to work like that. That's precisely why I'm still in accounting, is because I am working towards something still. It's still a process of finding the right fit. For me, my motivation was just to prove to myself. It was just an accomplishment that I wanted to achieve personally. I knew it would help me in the future. I knew it would help my career, but it was definitely more personal to me than just, I know that it'll be my gold ticket to get whatever I want. And that's just absolutely not true at all. You're not gonna just have a master's and apply for any job without having, my favorite thing to say is just the marriage between education and experience is key. If you don't have experience, your master's is valuable, but it's so much more valuable when it's paired with experience. And I kind of like to use the analogy of education is like reading the manual before you put a piece of furniture together. It prepares you for what you're going to come across. Like, what is this screw going to do? Like, you're just prepared, so that when you go and do the actual thing, you know what's to come, or you've been exposed to this prior, and you're just going to be better prepared. Trying to do a job maybe without education, you might hit some bumps in the road that education otherwise could have helped you avoid. So the two put together, and this is why I did my internship, because ultimately I wanted to try and gain experience in a field that was more the direction that I wanted to go. It might be a small experience, but it's a building block. And so I think that, again, with those research opportunities, if you have them, do them, because that's experience. That's so much more comparable to a real job than just saying, oh, I read this book during my class. So for me, 100% worth it. Would do it again. No regrets. The time passed anyway. The 2 years went by anyway. And I came out of it feeling so much more confident in just approaching what it is that I want to do. And yeah, and did I ever think I would even consider getting a PhD? Absolutely not. I never thought that. But after my master's, I felt like, you know what? I can do this, and I'm really interested in this. And so I just, play with the idea. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go forward with it. I would encourage people to do it if they're prepared to give everything they have to give, because you don't want to look back on your degree and have regrets like, oh, I should have tried harder on that, or I could have done better in that class. I should have took that research opportunity, because at this point, this is costing you money. This is your money on the line that you've worked hard for. You want to make it worth your while. And it's just, so it feels so good to have known that you did your best. You put your best effort forward, and you have something to show for it, rather than kind of, I don't know, going into it unprepared or not really sure what your direction is. Masters, again, there's a variety of ages too that pursue master's degrees. You don't have to go get it right now. You can take your time, figure out what it is that you really like or really want to do, or really interested in. Work. That's ultimately what I did. I worked in my field for a while, and I think that can help too if you want to stay within your field. Work in it for a little while and see what actually speaks to you and what you might want to concentrate more on. And so there's no rush. I think we could all probably agree that everyone's on their own time frame in life. And I've had to come to terms with that like, it's okay to just go slow.
That's a great question. And I really think it depends on each person. I think that if you don't know what you want to do next, and if you're thinking, maybe I'll do graduate school, maybe that isn't the best option for you. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of commitment. And if you're going into it without really knowing why, it probably is going to be a very painful transition for you. I knew that I wanted to go into research. And so that's why I did my master's. And then I knew that I really liked teaching in academia and doing research in academia. So that's why I went into a PhD. I could see myself in a position in academia. And so it made sense for me. But I think that the just because, or I don't know what to do after I finish my undergraduate, maybe you should take a year and figure out what you want to do before committing to graduate school, because burnout is a really big issue. And it's kind of sad when you see people go through burnout in graduate school.
I tried to put success at the forefront and put getting through my master's program at the forefront of everything. But some things that students should always prioritize is your mental health. Your mental health is a very, very valuable and a very, very important thing. And I feel like when you are good from that standpoint, you do some of your best work. And you know, for me, you know, going through a program during COVID, you start to kind of get down on yourself and you kind of don't see the opportunities there in front of you, and you're working and it's very easy to get down on yourself and kind of look at it and say, okay, why aren't these things available for me? But at the end of the day, once I started to prioritize my mental health and kind of look at things in a different perspective, a lot of doors open for me that I normally wouldn't have. So my biggest thing is just always, when you're going through this program or going through any process with school, whether it be a 4-year degree or a graduate degree, even Ph.D., that always do kind of a mental health check to see where you are, and to always try to take a break when you have the ability to, and kind of, you know, take a good look at things and be grateful for where you are in your path. Because I think about a mantra my grandpa always said was, you're going to work for the rest of your life. So going through this graduate program, going through your PhD, or even going through your 4-year, enjoy it, relish it. You're never going to see these people again, probably, and you're never going to you're never going to go back to school once you graduate with whether you're going to be done or not. So for me, I went through my 4-year very quickly, and I didn't get to relish it. So I made sure, you know, at the tail end of my graduate experience, I was able to relish it, enjoy the process, enjoy looking for work, and it helped change my perspective moving forward. And for anybody seeking that advice, I always recommend doing a mental health check and always, you know, putting that at the forefront of what you do.
When I've been in between jobs, or when I've moved and I've had to find a new job, it has been a lot easier for me to be able to find a job that I'm qualified for. Just because if I say if I show them like I have my master's degree, they're typically like, okay, cool, like you meet the bare minimum, but like that's interesting that you have this too. And so I haven't, like, when I've looked for jobs, even if it hasn't been within my field, I have had like some luck with that. I do think that that's helped me a little bit too.
A lot of what I learned through my master's program is it's actually very relevant. Like I said, it's not just to IT management, but just management in general. So I think for me, sure, I could have easily found something more along the lines of computers to do my master's in, but it didn't make sense, or nearly as much sense as what I actually ended up getting. And it really helped a great deal, even at my job.
There wasn't a TA in some of my early classes, I probably would not have known what a master's was until a lot later in my undergraduate career. And so I was asked by Dr. Jacobson while I was in her class. She said that you seem like you're really interested in the topics of this class. Would you be interested in joining this lab? And so that got me introduced into research. So she did a really good job at inviting me to do research. And I think that if undergraduates want that experience, they have to usually be really self-motivated to ask that. And so I was pretty shy, and I don't see myself being able to go and ask a professor, can I do research for you? So it just really worked in my favor that she asked me. So I just think just having those opportunities clear and open to undergraduate students, do you want to do research? Here's how we can help you make those connections. I think that would be the most important thing that should be emphasized.